All right. All right, so we'll start so we can stop, right?
Yep.
Well, welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Carlo Cuccaro. I'm a visiting professor in the CPS department. I also teach in extended learning. And looking forward to chatting a little bit about how I've used AI. I'm gonna make this as interactive as possible. So if you have a phone or if you have a laptop, a device that really will be helpful. Because I would prefer not to sit and talk at you the whole time. I'm prepared to do that, but I would prefer not to do that. So just to kind of jump in, one of the things I'd like to get a sense from you is, let me, bear with me. All right, so I'm gonna do a quick survey about your use of AI. So if you wouldn't mind kind of popping in, taking a picture of that, and we'll kind of walk through some real quick questions together.
I have these really low, so.
Oh, okay.
Right, stop.
Hopefully your battery will last. It's only a few questions. So first question I have is, what words come to mind when you think of AI? Good, bad, and the ugly. What do you think about? Yes, indeed.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely. Can be a major time saver. That's a blessing and a curse. We'll talk about that. Utility is a shortcut. Has profound implications for not only data integration, but data analysis. I'll talk a little bit about that as well. All right, thanks. Let's try the next one. Oh, we got some other, cool. Very helpful. Yeah, I am totally, I'm all in on AI. We'll talk about some of the limitations, but I think it's a game changer. All right, describe your comfort level with AI. So from a Luddite to you avoid or distrust it, to you're a genius and you could teach it. We got some people on the polls here. Got good cross section. Wait another 30 seconds, see if anybody else chimes in.
An element of the blue and an element of the pink, like I know how it works, but I don't use it.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. A little bit of both. All right. How often do you use AI for non-work related activities? Do you ever use it for traveling, budgeting, recipes, exercise routine? Okay. We'll talk a little about that. It's a great place to start. That's where I've had kind of my most fun, is looking at my pantry and thinking, what am I gonna do? And then saying to AI, what can I do?
I feel like this is like the Wikipedia, like this is the new Wikipedia as far as like.
Yeah,
we're
it's-
super like hesitant and mistrustful of it at first, but now we've learned how to use it, so.
100%. How about use of AI for work-related activities? Teaching courses, feedback on course outlines, using it for assignments. Okay, actually, I'm good. I'm glad to see that because my hope is to whet your appetite a little bit for how to use it with a little bit more fidelity. All right, we're going to shift gears. So the title of my talk was Centaur versus Cyborg, and that came out of this kind of aha moment that I had in reading a book by Ethan Mollick on AI. And he presented this visual, or at least the idea of how our relationships with AI can be different. And on the one hand, he talked about first using it as a centaur, where there's a clear division of tasks between the professional and AI. So you kind of offload some tasks to AI. It was a very clear division. You write a paper or you have some data and you ask AI to look at it and give you some feedback. Usually it's pretty repetitive tasks and very data intensive tasks. I use it to look at some big data sets. So for a lot of us, it is that kind of half man, half robot sort of relationship. But then there's this whole idea of the cyborg, which is you're really integrating AI seamlessly into what we do. And it's a much more dynamic, collaborative process. And this is where the fun comes in and a lot of the challenges, because I found that my relationship with AI has evolved more into cyborg, where it's almost like a conversation. And taking the time to engage is incredibly labor intensive. And despite the fact that AI is very efficient, very powerful, to get good stuff takes a lot of time and effort. So with all that said, there are some things that have really been instrumental for me in my journey. And not surprisingly, we'll talk a little about books and a little about other resources. Here are 4 great books. 2 of these were out of a book study through the college. Just wrapped up Teaching Effectively with ChatGPT. Really great book, great resources. The prompts that are included in that book are incredible. Very, very well done. I'm currently in the middle of AI Snake Oil. That's a really fascinating read. Ethan Mollick is a great introduction to co-intelligence, just from a foundational level, not a lot of nitty-gritty about how to use it. It's just the evolution of AI. When we think about co-intelligence as a construct, do these machine learning, do they have intelligence? Are we moving toward generalized intelligence? So any of those resources I would strongly encourage. The other thing, probably why you're here, is we know what a hot topic it is. So every day I'm getting an email or a message or an article, and just some of the ones that have caught my attention recently, Duke put up an article, a professor there called "My Losing Battle Against AI Cheating," which is essentially a plea for help because all of this person's students were using AI, and basically person was throwing their hands up and saying, I give up. They're going to use it. I've got to figure out how to accept that. Another great resource right here is T for Teaching. Great conversation about quite the opposite of that, is how do we equip students and ourselves to use this not as a tool to be perceived as cheating, but as a tool to be perceived as assist in learning. And really great conversation there. Finally, one that really kind of blew my mind was an interview with the authors of a paper called AI 2027, which essentially argues that our entire economic structure is going to be kind of blown to bits by AI in 2 to 3 years, and that artificial intelligence will be doing almost everything. And we have to rethink how we incentivize it. We have to rethink about what work is. So it's definitely apocalyptic, but it's kind of fascinating. And there's a million other articles that I could throw up there as well. So my thinking on a lot of this comes back to, you've heard variations of this, is that AI won't do the work for us, but it's an incredibly powerful tool. So somebody at a conference I went to shared this quote and I liked it. AI can help you get to third base, but it takes a human to get you home. I definitely agree with the sentiment. I'm not always sure of the accuracy, like sometimes AI strikes out. Sometimes it seems to come to the plate with a tennis racket. I don't know what it's doing. But by and large, it does really good things. And if I have that kind of Centaur collaborative relationship, the product and the output is pretty remarkable. This was a quote just recently, yesterday, in fact, that I thought was compelling. And the author of AI Snake Oil said, well, let's start with the definition of AI. And he said, there's a humorous definition of AI that says AI is whatever hasn't been done yet. And they go on to say, when AI applications work reliably, we don't even think about it. It disappears in the background. We take it for granted. So we don't think of robot vacuum cleaners as AI. We don't think of web searches as AI. Autocomplete, autocorrect, spam filtering, spell check, those are all AI, but they become so ubiquitous, we tend not to think of it as AI. So I'm going to talk a little bit in our conversation today about 4 tools, and there are many, many others, but these are the 4 I like. I would add perplexity to this as well. So if you're doing any work with AI on the instructional front, throw a dart, pick one of these. They're all really good. My go-to is I dance between ChatGPT and Claude, but Gemini just came out with a brand new AI, had a big unveiling a couple of days ago, and some of the technology that they're bringing in, Google is mind-blowing. My Notebook LM, I'm going to show you in a bit. That's a fun one as well. So when I use it across many, many environments, many, many tasks. Sometimes, like I said, it's just the simplest thing where I'll be looking at my pantry and I won't know what to make. And I'll say, I have chicken breast, I have chicken broth, I have, tomatoes, and I have some spices. What can I make? And it usually comes up with a really good step-by-step recipe. The other thing I'll do is sometimes if I'm struggling, like I had a friend of mine, his wife was diagnosed with cancer and she had to go to Johns Hopkins for a long period of time. And I was like, what can I send them as kind of a care package? So I just put it in Claude and said, hey, any ideas? And it gave me really great ideas for what to send this family. And then on the professional front, I've used it for a lot of things. I co-create AI policies with my students. So the university has an AI policy. I start almost every class by having them look at that and interrogate that in terms of what they think it means. How do we apply that in class? So I try to be very AI forward with all of my students. And once again, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but I know they're using it. Students are using it. Students are in some cases ahead of us in terms of their usage. So I want to make sure that I'm having ongoing conversations. So co-creating AI policies with students, really important. The other thing is I create assignments in class where I require students to use AI. So I teach a class on social emotional interventions, and I give them a task where they have to use Claude, Perplexity, ChatGPT to find evidence-based practices for students with challenging behaviors. I give them the prompt. We work on that together. That does 2 things. One is it gives them guided practice. And also it's a tool they're going to be using in the future. For me to think otherwise would be very short-sighted on my part. Other thing it's really helpful for is I have historically used videos in my classes, YouTube clips, to kind of emphasize a point, get people thinking. And normally what I do is have them turn and talk after watching video clips. The engagement and the response is kind of hard to gauge. So what I do is I have AI condense the video and then give it a prompt to give me some guiding questions using Bloom's taxonomy. And it gives you some really good content. I'll show you how to do that in a bit. And then once again, creating discussion prompts from there, generate reflective questions. The thing that came out of the Teaching with ChatGPT book that I found really powerful was how to use it almost as a tutor. And if you give students really detailed prompts, it can engage with them and cause them to think deeply about concepts that we're trying to get across. So I'm going to share some experience with that as well. Another thing that's really cool, I have a number of students who commute. So they're in the car for an hour, hour and a half. I've used Notebook LM to turn my PowerPoints, my articles into podcasts. And the speed at which it does it and the detail, it's very impressive. I'll show you a couple samples of that. And then I already mentioned using it as a reflective coach. Just kind of quickly, and this is maybe review for many people, but it's something that was an aha for me. AI is really kind of a great example of garbage in, garbage out. If you don't give it good prompts, if you don't give it good guidance, if you don't engage with it consistently, you're going to get poor quality on your return. And so I remember, I think it was in one of Rebecca and John's podcasts where the presenter said, think about three things: role, goal, information. What role do you want to assume the AI tool? What is the goal? What do you want this ultimately to produce? And then give it as much information as you can. We're going to talk about what the information should look like, the risk of personally identifying information. And the thing that I learned later that is my go-to in every case is at the end of every prompt, I add, ask me any questions you need answered before completing this task. And that's a game changer. AI does a remarkable job of asking very thoughtful and detailed questions to help you be more effective. So we're going to play a little bit. So one of the things that I've done with my students is have AI help them create a biography. Like in your icebreaker, I do it with a twofold goal. One is I want them to introduce themselves, but I also want them experimenting with AI in a low stakes supported way. So for a lot of my classes, I put this up under the icebreaker, and I'm gonna, if you have your phone, you can do this. So all you're doing is writing down 10 things about yourself. You can go into ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude. Perplexity doesn't require a login. And just add 10 things about yourself. What's your hobbies? What's your favorite food? What are you teaching? And then pick the style of who you want to write your biography. So some examples here. It could be Dr. Seuss, Oprah, Shakespeare, Kendrick Lamar. And then the prompt, once again, role, goal, information. Write a short, fun biography about me using the following facts. You put in your facts. Please write in the style of. So I'll show you mine, and then I'll give you 2 minutes if anyone wants to play with it. I'd love to see yours. So here's mine. Write a short, fun biography about me using the following facts. I'm an avid reader. My favorite authors are Anne Lamott and John Irving. I'm an avid runner, and I have run several marathons, ultra marathons. I love live music. Spend time at camp in the Adirondacks. I have 3 children who are all adults, live on their own, 2 in New York and 1 in Chicago. I recently retired after 31 years as a school psychologist and have taught at SUNY Oswego for 30 years. Please write in the style of Stephen King. And I'll let you kind of check out the story. But once again, kind of a fun way to engage with it. I'll give you a minute or two to play with it. I know you said your phone was dying. It's kind of a cool way to try it out. So let's see if any takers on it.
Does that ring true to you?
It rings true to me in terms of the detail, yes, having read a bunch of Stephen King, it's not bad. It's
So
not,
as far as like, does that voice that's being used in there, like, does that resonate with you? All of the little details that are added, you know, before the sun has carved its light through the pines, and he ran because the stillness never felt quite right.
yeah,
I mean, does that is that reflective of you? And it just so
it's
happens because you happen to like Stephen King and the way he writes, or is it not relevant to you at all? That's my question.
well, it's certainly relevant to me because the facts I provided. Now, when I think about Stephen King's writing, and I read a bunch of his stuff, there are parts that like, yeah, I could hear Stephen King writing that. It's not great. It's certainly not the level of Stephen King, but I would say, yeah, it has Stephen King flavor to it. And I don't know how to, if I can
I
ask.
think my question was different though, like. Why did you choose in the language of Stephen King? Just for fun?
Yes.
Or because you want to actually use this bio for something?
Nope, all I want to do is I want to use it to, once again, continue to experiment with AI. See if this is a low stakes, fun way to do it.
Okay,
What's the product look
Okay.
like? And students have done a whole range, and some of them are incredibly hilarious. But my goal for this, particularly in using it with students, is to provide guided, low stakes opportunities.
Okay.
And because it's not my voice, it's my information, but I want it in somebody else's voice. I'm less concerned if it sounds like me,
okay.
and more concerned does it
That's
sound
what I
like
That's
Stephen
what I
King.
was- Okay.
Yeah. So that's once again, kind of a low stakes, fun way to introduce.
So I just did mine.
Yeah, would you mind?
With Donald Duck.
All right, share a little bit.
So I just took my bio right off the webpage that I already had. So it was like, quack, oh boy, here goes. Hiya, I'm Dr. Jessica Harris, quack, right? And just gave like these funny little things. One of my research articles that I I wrote is on sexual health, and it says blushes and flaps wings, right? So you can see kind of the Donald Duck aspect of it.
Yeah, now of
throughout
course
it.
it'd be better if you would do it in Donald Duck's voice,
Right,
right?
right, right.
I won't ask you to do that.
Yeah, and then just was really funny because in italics it put like salutes wildly with feathers flying, like it added like the
Yeah.
actual, yeah. And then it says, let me know if you want a version that's more kid friendly or PG-13 with a cartoon image.
Yeah.
Probably because my research on sexual health. So it's probably why that's in there, but
Yes, thank you for sharing that. So other things that I've thought a lot about is my prompts and what they look like and how they've evolved over time. Most people will say rightly that AI has gotten so good that the prompts are less and less important. I've found that not to be the case. I found that prompts still are very, very crucial to what I'm looking for as far as outcomes. So here's one that I use across a lot of different topics, but role goal information. So assume the role of a graduate professor teaching a class, a future psychologist. You're sharing a video. You want 3 to 5 prompts for small group discussion. Review the transcript and summarize it. Finally, create the prompts to engage the student across the various levels of Bloom's taxonomy. I'll show you that in a second. Does an amazing job with that. And I use videos a lot. I try to use anything from like 8 to 10 minute videos interspersed throughout my classes. And this has replaced the whole turn and talk for me. Another thing under in terms of students doing it themselves is, once again, assume the role of a school psychology graduate student, taking a class on educational interventions, generate 3 to 5 research-based interventions, as well as ways to progress monitor. So as school psychologists, the students I deal with primarily, they're going to be in the front line of delivering interventions for students. And they're often frustrated because not all of them have had experience in a classroom. And the World Wide Web can seem overwhelming. So finding evidence-based practices that can be implemented, that have some rigor to them, can be very, very difficult. So then practicing that under my guidance and seeing that this is useful is really important. And then on the fun side, my wife and I like to travel. So a couple years ago, we were trying to figure out, we wanted to go to Italy. So I put in assume the role of travel agent, create an itinerary for a 10-day 10-day trip to Italy. For a 55 to 60-year-old couple, they want to avoid heavy tourist areas, prefer quiet scenery, delicious food, and good wine. And not surprisingly, came up with a wonderful framework for places that I wanted to go. And we ended up going wonderful.
Carl, can I ask a quick question?
Please.
Sorry, hi. The second prompt around the 3 to 5 research-based interventions, did you find
Yes.
those to be pretty useful, like real interventions, or were they?
Yes, real interventions. And the nice thing about it is they also provide links to the actual intervention. Now, some of those interventions are commercial products. So then we had to do a little deeper dive in terms of, can you access those? But by and large, they came up with some really good intervention ideas. And for students who are just starting out,
Right.
it's a great way to cut through a lot of the noise.
And that was just with ChatGPT, or did you use like Magic AI?
No, that was just
Educator?
ChatGPT and Claude. Some students, I also invite them to use Perplexity. They like that because that gives the references for any of the research that goes along with the interventions.
Okay, great, thanks.
No, thank you for asking. And like I said, my go-to for any of these is I add at the end of the prompt, ask me any questions you need answered before completing the task. I'm going to talk a little bit about something I use in my class quite a bit. I already spoke about it, where I'm using it to summarize YouTube videos and create prompts. I put the steps in here. You can kind of go through this yourself, but I'm just going to give you a quick summary of how to do it. But you're navigating YouTube, find the video that you want, and then I'll show you how to do this. But every YouTube video, well, almost every YouTube video has a transcript. And so when you are able to access a transcript, you can get ChatGPT or Claude, or once again, Perplexity, Gemini, any of these will do it. We'll summarize it. So I'll show you how to walk through, get the timestamps off of the transcript, how to get it readable text, how to copy and paste it. Then I get into one of the AI platforms, and this is my prompt. Assume the role of a graduate professor. You've already seen this in an earlier slide. I want some good prompts for small group discussion, and I want you to use Bloom's taxonomy to generate the prompts. I'm going to switch here for a sec. Hopefully my people online will be able to continue to see. All right. So here is a YouTube video I've used in my classes.
Can I ask, we can't see online, I think because you're only sharing the PowerPoint
Okay. Oh,
application. If you share your full screen, we can see what you're navigating to. You have to stop share and reshare.
all right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let me try that.
Yeah,
Hold.
just go to the Zoom and then click share again.
Okay. Get back. Thanks for keeping me honest online, people.
And then the video.
All right. Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is just kind of a quick primer on how to do this. So what you're going to find in any video, if you scroll here, you'll see more. And if you click on more, you're going to scroll down, you get a summary. Then toward the very bottom, you're going to see show transcript. So if you click on show transcript, what that immediately does is brings you to the top here, and you have the entire transcript for the video. It's also time stamped. So what you want to do is you want to, these three buttons here, and this is all in the slide that describes it. Click here, you're going to toggle the timestamps. That gets rid of the timestamps. And then all that I do is cut and paste. I'll do half of it. All right, that's a good place to start. So I'm going to copy this. Then I'm going to go. Oh, I should have been prepared for this. Let's do Claude. All right, so I'm gonna go back for a second and steal my prompt.
You're gonna lose the thing you copied from the
Yeah.
transcript.
Oh, thank you.
Copy that.
Yes, yes, yes. All right,
Sorry, didn't mean.
no, no, no.
I don't want you to-
Thank you for doing that. All right, so okay, so the prompt, the text is in there. Now I want to cut and paste my prompt. I should copy and paste it. So I've got my prompt, assume the role of a school psychologist, graduate professor. I'm sharing a video below. There's a transcript. And then I'm going to hit. So it does a nice job of summarizing it. Immediately goes to the facts about the research. Talks about the triple blind theory. So this is all directly from the video discussion. And then what it does is it gives you prompts. And if you look, I'll kind of slow this down a little bit. The first prompt, these are all from Bloom. So you've got analysis and evaluation, synthesis and evaluation. So here it says the transcript mentions the traditional ADHD rating scales were heavily biased towards fidgeting and running around the classroom. Critically evaluate current assessment practices in schools. What biases might still exist in how we identify and refer students for ADHD evaluations? How do cultural expectations of gender roles influence teacher referrals? Now, going back to that slide earlier that AI will get you to third base, it takes a human to get you home. So I often have to tweak these and find out, is it specific enough? Do I want to change the wording? But it does a wonderful job of giving me some really engaging prompts that students can then, instead of just turning and saying, oh, that video was interesting, they said this, that they're really having to think way more about it. All right. May have to go. Oh, another one I want to show you is Notebook LM. People online, can you see this okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I don't have the time to show you how to use Notebook LM, but just two things. One is it's really helpful instructionally. The only downside is you can't access it through your Oswego EDU account. So anything you use Notebook LM, which is a Google product, you have to go through your own personal Gmail. But what's nice about it is I'll teach a course on best practices, for example, for anxiety. And what I'll do is I'll upload the article that the students are required to read. This is from Best Practices in School Psychology. This is another online article. And then what Notebook LM will do, two things that are really cool. One is it'll summarize the information, but it'll also create a podcast. And some of you have probably already seen this, so there's less of a wow factor. But when I first experienced this, it kind of blew my mind because all that it's doing is taking information that you put in. I've done this with my PowerPoints. I've done it with articles. I've done it with a whole bunch of different resources. And I'll just give you a flavor for what it comes up with.
You know, it's kind of crazy when you think about how many kids are dealing with anxiety these days.
Oh, yeah.
That statistic of like 1 in 11 children and adolescents in the US having an anxiety disorder. And it's been increasing for the past like 20 years or so.
Yeah.
As a parent, like I really see it everywhere. You know,
Right.
like a change in routine just throws everything off.
Oh, totally.
Or the morning rush turns into a battle about going to school, and then there's all the constant negotiating about social media.
Yeah, it's tough.
It makes you think about how can we support our kids, but also help them be able to handle whatever life throws at them.
It's like, how do we help them build resilience in this world?
Exactly.
So there's a little flavor. And if you scroll down, what it will also, oh, I can't find it now. You can have notes and summaries. It does a whole bunch of really cool things with the information put in. So that's another go-to that I use quite a bit for my students. I'll put it up on my Brightspace class for almost any topic. Some students will use it when they're traveling, but it's really easy to do. And I find that the feedback around it has been very, very positive. All right, we have about 10 minutes. So this is going to be kind of the deeper part of the conversation, because this for me has been a real game changer in terms of how I use AI with students to deepen their own thinking about given topics. So what I've done is, if you capture that QR code, you're going to be brought to this prompt. And I want to just take maybe about 5 minutes to kind of explain this to you. And then if you can, engage with AI for a few minutes. And basically what you're doing is you're opening up an AI platform. Once again, any of the free versions this will work with. I like ChatGPT and Claude, but Perplexity does a really nice job as well. And so this is a prompt I got out of teaching with ChatGPT. And I won't read the whole thing to you, but it really gives a great deal of information to the AI, because you want it to force the student to think about their thinking. So for example, you are a graduate student enrolled in a course on educational policy and leadership. I'm your reflective coach here to assist you in understanding. The goal is help me understand better understanding the historical, educational, and legal context of this issue, meaning the federal action on higher ed. Some of you may have heard about that. Help me see the issue from multiple perspectives. Ask open-ended questions, but only ask them one at a time. Begin our discussion with this question. Tell me one event or news story. So I've done this across topics with students. And
We can't, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we can't see what you've got.
It's still on the
Oh,
Yeah.
it's still on the notebook LM.
sorry. Thank you again. All right. Here we go. Okay. So the QR code will bring you to this prompt. And what I wanted to give you the opportunity to do, and you won't be able to get deep into it, is when you put this prompt into either ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity, what it asked AI to do is be like your reflective coach. And so it's asking you to think deeply about certain issues. In this case, I'm talking about federal involvement in higher education. And I've used it across a bunch of different topics. But what I'm going to do is I'll try to dance between two worlds. If I'd encourage you to try this on your own, I'm going to show you what it looks like on Claude. We'll kind of do it together. But this is really a cool thing to use. I take this same structure of the prompt and just put different topics into it. So I'll show you what that looks like. Bear with me. Change it up and use ChatGPT. Are you able to see that?
No, you get a
No, you
screen
can
Nope.
share
share.
again.
Yeah.
Where am I?
You go to Zoom
Okay, thank you.
and and then hit share.
All right. Okay. All right, so now we're on ChatGPT, and basically what I'm doing is I'm gonna cut and paste that prompt into ChatGPT. And I've done this in class with students, and I kind of float around behind them to see them engaging with it. So you'll kind of see what it does here. So it says, absolutely, I'm ready to be a reflective coach and support your growth, understanding this complex landscape of federal actions in higher education. So it prompts me. Let's begin with this. Tell me one event or news story that challenged or deepened your thinking about federal policies geared toward higher education. Take your time. I'd like you to describe the event. So I'm going to put in recent federal government intervention taking funding from Ivy League institutions. So I'm going to hit return. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on the recent federal intervention affecting Ivy League institutions. Let's delve deeper. You mentioned that this event challenged or deepened your thinking about federal policies. What aspect of this situation prompted you to consider or refine your understanding? So it's asking me to elaborate. And I think what I'm finding is students aren't always prepared to kind of actively engage. So they will say, it keeps asking me questions. I'm like, well, that's what I'm asking it to do. And what's nice about it is it really does individualize their engagement. And so they're able to kind of go back and forth. It asks really probing questions. So this for me has been a really fun way, once again, to kind of scratch two itches. The first itch is how do I continue to expose students in a instructive and helpful way to AI. The other is how do I make sure that I'm developing the facility with these things? That's been the biggest challenge. And I'm going to kind of wrap up here because in my journey through this, I'm just switching here, bear with me. Let's see this. Can you tell me if you can see my PowerPoint?
No, we're still on ChatGPT.
All right. Yep, let's see.
Yep, just go to share.
All right. I think I'm getting there. Okay, we're back. All right, so hopefully it's a good way to kind of bring us home here because I think there are a couple of quotes that really gave me both a sense of hope, but a real way of reflecting on this. So recently, Ezra Klein from New York Times had an interview with a researcher on instruction and pedagogy. And she said something that really struck me. She said, we need to have young people build that muscle of doing hard things because I worry greatly that AI will basically make a frictionless world for young people. It's great for me. I'm loving generative AI, but I've had several decades of brain development where I know how to do hard things. But kids are developing their brains. They're literally being neurobiologically wired for how to attend, how to focus, how to try, how to connect. And all these things are not easy. And I think a lot about that. Like I love AI, but I have all of this preliminary kind of muscle that's been built up. And so I'm able to look at the product and think through it and see what I like, what I agree with. But I think there's an instinct and even a temptation to just offload the cognitive thinking to AI. And this is one that I thought was really great. Let's be clear, AI is no threat to education any more than the introduction of the calculator was. With the right oversight, it can be a valuable learning tool. But to get there, teachers will have to overhaul their curricula, their teaching strategies, and their exams. I mean, this is a game changer for all of us in terms of how we assess learning, how we tell if students are really putting in the work. The utility of our assignments, I think, are called into question. So I think it's a real disruptive force which is both scary and a little fun. And I think recently, professor in the chemistry department from Michigan State talked about her fear. And that is, on the one hand, instructors will use AI to generate course materials. Students will use AI to complete assignments, and instructors will use AI to grade. And so you bypass any learning. And so trying to make sure that it doesn't become this empty exercise is a real challenge. But I think there's incredible promise, and I'm excited about the potential. And the last thing I'll say quickly, and I'll leave it up here, the great article out of Chronicle of Higher Ed about how we need to be AI aware. And the author talked about taking 90 minutes a week and dividing it into 3 things. One is read about AI, explore AI, and then reflect on it. And I think that's really manageable. That's kind of been my journey. Although if you ask my wife, she'll say it's a lot more than 90 minutes. But it's incredibly fun and incredibly rewarding. So thanks. I'm open to any questions, thoughts. Love to hear your where your head is. How about y'all?
I have actually thought about it in terms of the calculator myself. Like, I do remember when kids are never gonna know math again, now that we've introduced calculators, but we still make elementary school students learn their math facts.
Yeah.
Because you have to have some facility with it. You're not gonna always have a calculator with you. Sometimes it's quicker in your head. And you have to know enough to know whether the calculator answer you're getting is right. How do you know if you didn't mess up when you typed something in, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Or if, you know, you're solving a word problem and it says you need 7,462 apples to make a pie, you know, that's not a reasonable answer. So I feel like I'm thinking about this whole new tool in the same way.
And that's for me, I think a necessary, we need to be cautious. There's a lot of doomsday talk around AI, but I think it's like so many other disruptive forces that have come into education, where if we keep it in perspective, see how we can harness it and be the person behind it, instructing it and guiding it, I think is really crucial.
Makes sense to me.
Any other thoughts? Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.